Where did Judas go wrong? As we enter into this Holy Week, as we enter into these days before the Sacred Triduum, we get to focus a lot on Judas. All of the Gospels kind of deal with the betrayer of Jesus. And we might ask, how does a close follower, somebody who accompanied Jesus for 3 years, all along the shores of Galilee, listening to his teaching and his preaching, seeing his miracles, how does somebody like that end up betraying him, selling him for 30 pieces of silver? How does that happen? Well, today we get perhaps a little glimpse of that. This gospel begins with Jesus being back in Bethany. He's back with Mary and Martha and the newly raised Lazarus. Remember last week we heard about the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Now finally we see that Jesus is having dinner with them together. What a great dinner that would be to be at, to be able to eat with Jesus and Martha and Mary, to see Lazarus who's been newly raised from the dead. What joy would be present at that extravagant and amazing feast. And then we see Mary do something very, very strange. Mary takes this jar of oil, this very, very costly oil, and she pours it all over his feet. And it's such a fragrant oil that everyone, the whole house is filled with this aroma. And it's Judas who is most appalled by this. It's Judas who takes offense and says, Lord, this could be 300 days' wages. That's an expensive oil. Money could have been given to the poor. Sounds like a noble thought. But indeed, the Gospels tell us that Judas is not acting so nobly. That Judas is responsible for the common purse. He's the treasurer of Jesus and the 12 disciples. He's the one who ensures that they have, whenever they need to spend money, that they have some money in reserve. But it also says that Judas is stealing from that common purse. That money that should be going towards caring for Jesus and the disciples and the poor that Jesus encounters as he goes along his way, that instead Judas is taking this for himself. And so we see that Judas from the beginning has been tainted by sin. This isn't just some radical change that happens, that Judas goes from loving Jesus and in the next moment he's betraying him. Rather, little bit by little bit, Judas allows himself to be corrupted by sin. Little by little, he takes money from the common purse. And so it begins to ruin his spirit, that his soul becomes tainted by sin. And so he's led more and more to that final great evil. And in response to him, Jesus indicates something also particularly strange. Because, we're not really sure. It's not evident. We don't hear from Mary herself why she poured all of this oil onto his feet. But we hear from Jesus that Mary did so because this oil was meant for his burial. Now, that's a very strange thing because, Jesus is only 33 years old. Why would Mary go and spend a great deal of wealth, thousands of dollars? Why would she go spend all of this huge exuberant amount of money to buy this perfume for Jesus' burial? Something that presumably will happen years and years and years from now. Perhaps Mary seems to know something that none of the other disciples do. Mary recognizes that That when she saw how Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, that she saw something had changed, that she saw how people were angered by this, perhaps how people were trying to kill him now. Perhaps she senses what few others can see, even Martha, who's still doing the dishes, typical Martha style. But Mary is the one who sits at the feet of Jesus. She's aware, she can see what Jesus says. You're always going to have the poor with you. There's always going to be needs in this world, but you won't always have me. Mary understands this, and so she anoints his feet. She anoints them, getting them ready to be buried. So too, we're meant to see in this gospel passage the greatness with which we're meant to give our lives for Christ. God doesn't deserve just whatever is lying around in our lives, whatever, the extra stuff. God's the best. And so God deserves the best. It's Judas who wants to steal from Jesus, who wants to steal from the common purse that's been set up. It's Mary who gives everything. It's Mary who wants to give fully to Jesus. Mary wants to give so much so that she spends this great amount of money in this great act of service and love for God. And so today, brothers and sisters, we're encouraged to do the same, to do some great act today out of love for God. Amen.